StraightallDay.com.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and offensively, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques, all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is assessing yourself and your circle. We'll get into that, of course, in a moment. But before we get started, let me tell everybody, I send out a daily motivation text for free every morning to everybody who's in my text community. This text is guaranteed to help you start your day being focused, sharp, and on point. If you would like to be focused, sharp, and on point at the start of your day every day, all you got to do is get this daily motivation text. All you got to do to get that is to text me right now at my number, which is 305-384-6894. And every morning when I send out the daily motivation text, you as a member of my texting community shall receive that message, and you also can respond to any one of those messages that I send out, and you'll be getting that daily motivation text. And you'll be able actually to have a running conversation with me right there in the text messages, because I do actually read and reply to the messages that I receive. So text me at that number. It is listed down below in the show notes. Secondly, Work on Your Game University is the place where you go to work with me directly. If you would like to be coached by me, if you want to get access to our most important frameworks like Bulletproof Mindset, the Business Builder Framework, the Work on Your Game system, where we show you how to put systems in place and the accountability and execution, things like Next Mission, Sell Yourself, Toughen Up, Content Creation, 30 Days to Discipline, ASAP Confidence, and a whole host of other frameworks that will help you take your business where it needs to go. All you need to do is join me by going to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Again, that's workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's where the only place where you can work with me directly. That link is also down below in the show notes. Now let's get into this topic, which is assessing yourself and your circle. As you know, that I've talked a lot about the collaboration era and how much relationships matter in the world that we're living in today. These points today actually came from, I borrowed these points from a quote that is attributed to Eleanor Roosevelt and will be expanded upon, and explained by me today to help you identify where you are mentally and who you are associating with on a regular basis based on what you are continually partaking in mentally. And as I get to explaining it, you understand this a lot better. Let's get to it. Point number one. Topic, once again, is assessing yourself and your circle. Number one, small-minded individuals. Here's how you know you're dealing with small-minded people, because they spend the majority of their time talking about, drum roll please, other people. That's what small-minded people do. Small minds talk about other people. This is where they spend the majority of their time. Not to say that other people don't talk about other people. Everybody talks about other people at some point, on some levels, but where do you spend the majority of your time is the question that I want you asking yourself. All of us talk about people, again, at some level, at some point every day, but where are you spending most of the time? Small minds who discuss people are people who would rather immerse themselves in gossip, back and forth arguing, bickering, and debating, generally watching other people live their lives as their form of personal entertainment. This is what small-minded people do. They watch other people live their lives, and this is how they get their entertainment. This is how they get their excitement. They are living through watching other people. Small-minded people can tell you everything about what other people are doing, yet they can't tell you much about what they themselves are doing. There's not much they can tell you about what they're doing because they ain't doing much. What they are doing, though, is watching what everybody else is doing, so they can give you a whole bunch about what he, she, they, and them are doing, but they can't tell you much about what that person themselves is doing, because what they spend their time doing. You want to know what a small-minded person spends their time doing? They're usually watching a lot of TV. They're scouring the internet to look at other people's activities and look at other people's behaviors. Now, when you talk to these people, usually this is where they spend most of their time. They'll tell you what everybody else is doing, what everybody else got going on. They know everybody else's business. They can tell you everything about other folks. They can't tell you anything about themselves. You notice most of their conversations about all the things that they've seen and known and heard from other people. Now, let me to let you in on a secret here. In episode 1058, I told you about the 3 levels of people: the 2-minute people, the 2-hour people, and the 2-day people. These are people, these small-minded people, these are your 2-minute individuals. However, in that 2 minutes, you might be able to gather some valuable information from these people because they have no choice but to talk about the only thing they pay attention to, which is other people. You may be able to gather some valuable information about those other people from these small-minded individuals, but be careful that you're not giving them more than their allotted 2 minutes of time, because if you spend enough time with them, they will start to drag you down into their game, and you're going to find yourself being like them, talking about other people, when what you should be doing is something that maybe one of these higher level individuals does, that I'm going to talk about in point 2 and point number 3. So use these 2-minute people for what they are good for, which is telling you about other people, because that's the only thing they know, it's the only thing they're focused on, so they don't have anything else to offer you. They're going to give you what they got. In that 2 minutes, get what you can get out of them, and then you move on. And sometimes you may get some valuable information from those people. But this is one of the reasons why I told you that the information that you really need in life isn't coming from books or websites or chat GPT. The most valuable information you need is coming from other human beings. Now, it doesn't have to be from these level 1 small-minded people. It can be from number 2 and number 3 people, and I'm going to talk about in the second and third points of this masterclass. But understand that the real information you want, again, is going to come from other human beings, because they see things, they infer things, and they know about stuff that ain't posted on the internet. Everybody got it? Good. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is we are talking about assessing yourself and your circle, the levels of thinking that people have. Number 2, average minds, guess what they talk about? Drum roll, please. Average minds discuss events. Events, E-V-E-N-T-S, events. This is where the masses reside. Most people spend most of their time discussing events, looking at, watching, talking about, thinking about things that have happened that usually do not involve them personally, but they know all about it because they watched it, they heard about it, they talk about it, they go see what everybody else is saying about it. This is the discussion of events. This is where the masses of people live. Television, the entire industry of television is centered around this. And now I guess we can say television and the internet is mostly centered around events. They're telling you what happened, everybody's paying attention, everybody's talking about it, everybody's looking at it, everybody's watching. Again, this is not to say that there is not some value to be gained in paying attention to certain events. But you don't want to spend all of your time here. You don't want to spend the majority of your time here, because that will make you average. And if you spend the majority of your time in average land, then guess what you are? You are average. You are your habits. Television tells you, when you turn on the TV or the internet these days, what is it telling you? It's telling you what happened, who did it, why you should care about it, and it even will go as far as to try to predict what's going to happen next to keep your attention. That's what TV does. When I say TV, I mean, yes, the actual screen that you turn on with the remote control, but also a lot of the stuff that you're looking at on the internet has just been morphed over from TV. It would have been on TV 30 years ago, now it's just on the internet, but it's the same stuff. What you see on TV, and now much of it is being transferred to the internet, is simply the discussion of events. When you turn on ESPN and they have those debate TV shows, and now everybody has a debate TV show, or they got a podcast where they're talking about current events and pop culture and news and things like that, what are all of them doing? What is ESPN? You look at the programming on ESPN, the shows that come on all day. You look at podcasts where people are talking about current events and pop culture. You look at news networks that are talking about whatever is happening in the political landscape. All of them are talking about the same thing, events. Here's what happened. Here's what we think about it. We are inviting you into the conversation. Tell us what you think about what we think, and we're going to predict for you what's going to happen next. All of it is about events. This is how they keep your attention, because it's interesting and entertaining to listen to other people talk about these events, because you know what happened, you have an opinion, then you want to hear this person's opinion and her opinion and their opinion, and then you want to bounce your opinion off them and see what they got to say about your opinion, and then it just becomes this whole back and forth thing, and then tomorrow another thing happens and everybody got a whole new opinion about that, now everybody's talking about that, and this just goes on and on and on and on excuse me, until everybody dies. This is how most people spend their entire lives, paying attention to events and talking about them. Average people discuss events. This happened, I'm going to tell you about it. You should pay a lot of attention to it, because I'm going to tell you either why it matters a lot or why my opinion matters a lot. Television and internet are centered around this. Both the television and internet are extremely popular. Why? Because the masses of people buy into this stuff. This is what the masses of people are interested in, talking about events, talking about what happened between this person and that person, who said this, who's doing that, what's going to happen next. The masses are, by definition, average. Most people are average. The masses, when I say the masses, I mean most people, and most people by definition are average. So when you watch talk shows, you watch The View, that is people talking about events. A lot of podcasts these days where people just get on and they talk about whatever is happening recently, then they debate it and they talk about it, and maybe they take some comments from the studio audience or the write-in audience or the internet audience, and they talk about the comments that those people made, and they're all talking about what happened. Those are all conversation about events. The news is all about events. I mean, literally the events. Political stories, a lot of it is events. Most of what you see on social media, not all of it, but most of it, is about other people and other events. The most popular stuff is about people and events. 98% of the population is consumed with this type of material. So if I'm talking about you, and I've pointed you out in either of these first 2 points, listen, you're part of 98% of the population. Don't feel bad. You're not an outlier. This is normal behavior. This is how most people spend their lives, talking about other people and what they did. That's pretty much it. And these are the people that, in episode 1058, we talked about the 3 levels of associations. These are your 2-hour people that sometimes they could be talking about something substantial and valuable and important. Other times they're talking about some nonsense. They're the 2-hour people. You give them maybe 2 hours every now and then, but they had to come around to really get to that high level person that we're going to talk about in a moment. But you can't make them get there. They had to choose to get there. But all you can do is set the example. If they choose to come up to your level, they do. If they choose not to, they also have that right. It's not your call what they do with their lives. So all you can do is set an example and see what they do with it. But 98% of people are at this level here, this 2-hour level, that they are usually discussing events, whether a past event, a current event, or a future event, but they're not doing what we talk about in point number 3, which I haven't gotten to yet. So check yourself. Have I described you already in today's episode? Are you a person who spends the majority of your time discussing other people? Are you spending the majority of your time discussing events? Usually events happen because something a person did. So that's why points number 1 and number 2 can sometimes be grouped together. So when you're talking about events, usually you got to talk about the people who were at that event or the people who did something to make that event an event. So usually you're talking about both of these, people and events, at the same time. Small and average-minded people usually spend all of their lives just doing this, talking about other people, talking about the stuff they did. Now that we're clear on that, and I've pointed out 98% of the population, let's talk about the final 2%. Today's topic, once again, is assessing yourself and your circle, the levels of thinking. Number 3, great minds discuss ideas. Great minds discuss ideas. Ideas are the material that you get from reading books, from attending conferences that are informational for your personal and professional development, any material or exercises that are pushing you out of your comfort zone. These are ideas. Idea people are the kind of people you talk to. Every time you speak to them, they're always trying something new. They're thinking of something new, or they're looking for some insight or idea on how they can do things differently or better. They're always looking for that. Or they're trying to do things better so they can get better insights and ideas. They're trying to find, hey, how do I get more insights and ideas because I don't have enough right now. These higher level people, these great minds who discuss ideas, they can ask you for things like, hey, how can I do this better? And you can answer the question because you have some insight or some information that could possibly help them. You can help them out, they can help you out too. You can ask them a question, you can ask them the same question, they can help you out. So here's the question. How many friends do you have that you can call right now on the phone and discuss business ideas and actually get something useful out of the conversation? How many friends do you have you can ask them about some business idea you have, something that you're working on, something you're trying to do, and you can get something useful from them out of the conversation? They had no idea you were calling. It wasn't a planned call. You just called them and struck up a conversation and say, look, this is a business I'm thinking about doing. What do you think about this? Can you shoot some holes in this process for me? Tell me what I'm missing. See what they said. I'm talking about the friends of yours. All right. What can they say? Do they have anything to offer you? How much time do you spend consuming material that will give you insights and ideas on how to do your business better? And then how much of your time do you spend implementing it and being held accountable for actually doing it? You see, the professional information gatherers, the pigs, they are good on the new information part. They got plenty of new information. They always got new information. They're professional information gatherers, so they got more than you. Question is, of all the information you have gathered, how much have you implemented? How much information do you have sitting on your shelf collecting dust because you never actually implemented the information, but you have deemed it so important to go get information, but you never applied it? So how much time do you spend implementing, being held accountable for doing something versus just gathering the info? You see, the professional information gatherers, again, they got the new information part down to a science, but how much are you implementing? Who's holding you accountable for making sure it's being implemented and executed on the right way? See, that part, the pigs don't pass that part. Pigs don't pass that part of keeping it clean when all they're doing is gathering information. So be careful that you're not a professional information gatherer. You're actually getting ideas and you're actually doing something with it. So the ideas part is not just having them, but is actually executing, doing something with what you have. Moving on to point number 4. Today's topic, once again, is assessing yourself and your circle, the levels of thinking. Number 4, remember that all of this is connected to the law of association, which states you become the average of the people you spend the most time with, doesn't matter the number. So look through your phone log, got the last 10 phone calls that you had, the last 10 calls that you answered. Look through your text messages log, the last 10 people you exchanged text messages with. Looking at your social media DMs and the people who are sending you the DMs, here's my question. How many of these exchanges are on the level of ideas versus the level of events versus the levels of people? It's a good question. How many of these exchanges are on the level of ideas versus the level of events versus the levels of people? You want to spend the majority of your time on the idea level. That's where the high-minded people are. That's where the high-level thinkers are. They're thinking about ideas, not events that have already happened, they're old, and definitely not people. Are you associating with small-minded people, average minds, or great minds? I think this is a good question. It's a very good question. That's why I posed it here today. That's why it's part of this show. Are you associating with small-minded people who talk about other people, average minds who talk about events, or great minds who talk about ideas? Which one are you associating with? Whoever you're associating with is who you are, and it is who you are becoming, whether you want it to be or not. When I was growing up playing rec ball, coach said to one of the players on my team, "Are you smoking weed?" The guy said, "No, I'm not smoking weed." The coach said, "I drive around the neighborhood and I saw you standing with some guys who smoke weed." The guy said, "Well, it's because I'm standing with them doesn't mean I'm smoking weed." The coach said, "Well, if you hang around guys who deal drugs all day and everybody knows they're drug dealers and you start hanging with them, what's everyone going to assume about you?" He said, "They'll assume I'm a drug dealer." And he said, "If you hang around gay guys all day and everybody knows these guys are gay and you start hanging with them, what's everybody going to assume about you?" He said, "Well, they're going to assume that I'm gay." He said, "Okay, so if you hang around dudes who smoke weed all day and everybody knows they smoke weed, what's everybody going to think about you?" And the player said, "Well, they're going to assume I smoke weed." And the coach said, "Exactly." Who are you associating with? You're associating with people who talk about people who talk about events, people who talk about ideas. Which one are you? Whichever one you are, these are the people you should be seeking out and looking to connect with because they want to talk about the same thing you want to talk about. So where are you at? And where are you spending your time? And who are you trying to connect with? With that said, let's recap today's class, which is assessing yourself and your circle. These points, again, I attribute to Eleanor Roosevelt, was the first that I saw attributed to these, and I'm expanding upon them and explaining each one. Number 1, small minds discuss people. Now, all of us talk about people on some level, but we're talking about where you spend the majority of your time. Small-minded people can tell you everything about what other people are doing, but they can't ever tell you much about what they themselves are doing because they're not doing anything but gathering more information about other people. Number 2, average minds discuss events. This is where the masses reside. This is TV, this is the internet, this is anything where you're allowed to turn off your brain and just mindlessly consume material. That's the material that's talking about events most of the time. And this is where most people live, and this is why most people are average by definition. Talk shows, sports debate, the news, political stories, most of what you see on social media, 98% of it is simply events. And number 3, great minds discuss ideas. This is the material you get from reading books, attending conferences, and informational conferences, anything for you and your personal development. Any mental exercise that push you out of your mental or physical exercise that push you outside of your comfort zone. These are the people you talk to who are always trying something new, thinking something new, looking for some insider idea how they can do things differently or better. Or they're giving out some insider idea how you can do things differently or better. They can ask you for things and you can ask them. So how many friends do you have who are in the idea space? How many friends do you have who are great thinkers? They're always looking at new ideas, they're always thinking of new ways to do a thing, new ways to get better. How many friends do you have who you can count on your hands probably who fit that description? Many of you have 0. So how much time are you spending being that you have 0? How much time do you spend consuming material that will give you insights and ideas on how to do your business better? Then how much time do you spend on everything else, the stuff that's not actually taking you anywhere else? How much time you spend implementing that information is going to help you do your business better? How much time do you spend being held accountable for doing what you said you were going to do? Professional information gatherers are great with gathering new information, but is anything or anyone holding them accountable to make sure it actually happens? And point number 4, remember that all of this is connected to the law of association. So look through your phone log, the last 10 calls, look through your last 10 text messages. Who are you associating with? What's the conversation? What are y'all talking about? Y'all talking about people, y'all talking about events, you're talking about ideas. And as you do that, you may get a rude awakening that tells you a little bit about your associations, and those associations tell you a whole lot about you because you're associating with them. You picked them. Those are your friends, right? So with all that said, you know what you need to do. First of all, text me. Let me know you want to get that daily motivation straight to your phone every day. My number is 305-384-6894. And secondly, workonyourgameuniversity.com. If you'd like to work with me directly, be coached by me directly, you want to get access to our training frameworks like Bulletproof Mindset, Work on Your Game System, 30 Days Discipline, the Business Builder Framework, the Content Machine course, ASAP Confidence course, a whole bunch more material that I didn't even explain, all here in the show. Go over to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's where you get access to me, get access to the coaching, and we can start to get the work on your game right now. Workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre all day.